Good evening. Welcome to this Tuesday, March 17th, 2015 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll call roll. And may I remind commissioners, please make sure your mic is on and speak into the mic for the record. Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Crane.
Present.
Commissioner Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Grodsky.
Present.
Commissioner Hanner. Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Present.
And Mayor Kirchhoff.
Present.
And Commissioner Faulkner is present. We do have a quorum. We have no personal appearances scheduled this evening. One item on consent agenda, which is acceptance of minutes from our Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015 meeting, and unless any of the commissioners have a concern about the minutes, I would either entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented or to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crane.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
And second by Mayor Kirchhoff. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. Seven in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. And we have no items this evening under old business, so that will take us to new business this evening, case 15004 Madison Street, Monroe Street, rezoning from R1 Original Town to R3A Original Town. Case will require a public hearing. And is the applicant present? If so, would you like to come forward to the podium and present your case?
Okay.
No. Recuse? And for the record, I'll note that Commissioner Grodsky is recusing herself from this case.
My name is Randy Salee. My company is Salee Homes Incorporated. Our address is 3730 Northeast Troon Drive in Lee Summit, Missouri, 64064. And tonight I'd like to tell you a little bit about the project and the reason for our asking the rezoning. And I've also, together with me is our land planner who would work together on this project, and I'll let Wayne introduce himself, and then he'll tell you a little bit about maybe about what we've designed for this area, and then I'd like to maybe speak a little bit about the ownership and what our plans are as far as the long-term plans for the project.
Yep, certainly. Go ahead.
My name is Wayne Kirchhoff. I don't think I'm any relation to the mayor, maybe way back. It's spelled differently. Kirchhoff, WLK Urban Design, 11437 Flint in Overland Park, Kansas. I guess I could start out with the plan. I don't know if we need to put it up on the, I could walk through it a little bit, or if you've seen it.
Is it on?
It's,
okay, that's fine.
We looked at several scenarios for the layout and decided on this layout. There are 13 units, 22 off-street parking spaces. We've tried to tuck the parking back into the development in front of each unit and keep it away from the surrounding neighbors as much as we could, with landscape setbacks and landscape buffers all around. The buildings are four-sided architecture with patios on the back and and front patios on the front, interior sidewalks, and we've used the alley easement that exists on the west side as access to the trash enclosure, and we've tried to tuck that back in as well. So I think that the effort on this layout is to have a low-density, 55 and older, maintenance provided senior housing that would fit into the surrounding neighborhood.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Sally, you want to continue?
Well, like Wayne said, our intention is for this project, we do realize it's changing the zoning from individual, I believe it was originally platted as 8 individual lots, fairly narrow and deep, and it does change the usage probably from maybe families with small children to we will have to what we plan on in our covenants and restrictions to be I would say my age and above, and the units that Wayne and we have designed are they're all single level, basically slab-on grade patio type units with 2 bedrooms and kind of an open kitchen living area. We've seen other similar projects that gentleman that has done the building design has designed. Kurt Wallace out of Columbia, Missouri, who our architect will be on the actual buildings themselves, and we've seen the projects. We've seen projects that are newly built. We've seen projects that have been built for several years, and we like the long-term use of and the long-term look of this kind of project, and we feel like there's very little additional traffic flow than there might be with 8 individual homes, and we're planning on this being one ownership, being ourselves, and we're planning on owning it for a long period of time. Is what our initial plan is, and so we want it to be an asset to the neighbors around it and the community, and we'd just like a nice looking project for us to own and be proud of. So,
yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Warner, if you would present the staff report to us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. This is case number 15004, Monroe Street rezoning R1 Original Town to an R3A Original Town. And for the record, the applicant and the owner is R.L. Salee Real Estate Investments. The requested action is to rezone it, residential original town overlay district, to the multifamily residential original town overlay district. Now the location, I got to switch a few pages. Location is on the west side of Monroe Street, south side of Plum Street. I've included in your packet the aerial photographs, and along with other photographs of the project or the development site at all angles, north, south, east, and west, in corner views. The existing zoning we've already mentioned is the R1 Original Town Overlay District. The surrounding zoning is on the north side is R1 Original Town. South and the east sides are single family residential, and the west is R1 Original Town Overlay. It is 1.1 acres. And for the record, the legal description is all lots of 9 through 16 inclusive, Block 20, Town of Raymore, a subdivision of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri. The future land use map contained in the growth management plan identifies this property as appropriate for low-density residential use. Up on the board is the land use map. The goals contained in the growth management plan related to the zoning request, there's 3 different goals that staff has pointed out. Quality neighborhoods, goal number 2, retaining the housing affordability throughout the city by providing life cycle housing choices through the city, including senior housing. Quality neighborhoods, goal number 3, new residential subdivisions should be developed within the existing city limits, and this is achieved by infill development, promoting the continued growth of the city by supporting new residential projects on undeveloped land that currently exists within the city. The third goal, physical development, number 4, specifically action step number 2, supporting development applications that provide for choices in housing style, size, and cost. Included in the staff report is the adoption of the recommended land use map. This was part of the original town neighborhood plan. This map was to act as a guide for the future growth and development of the neighborhood. Establishment of the overlay district to address land uses and development within the neighborhood by regulating the variety of uses and structures in original town, allowing existing land uses patterns to remain, providing flexibility beyond the conventional zoning districts. The regulation should be flexible to accommodate a variety of styles, housing styles that is, in the future. Allowing and requiring existing platted lots to be combined and increase minimum lot areas for new dwelling units. Monroe Street and Plum Street is classified as a local street, or are classified as local streets in the major street plan. The action requested was advertised in the Raymore Journal February 26, 2015. This is our public hearing tonight. And the items of record to be entered into record is Exhibit 1, mailed notices to adjoining property owners. Exhibit 2, notice of publication. Exhibit 3, Unified Development Code. Exhibit 4, application. Exhibit 5, Growth Management Plan. Exhibit 6, staff report. And on your dias in front of your stations is Exhibit 7. It's an email received yesterday on 3/16/2015 by the Thurber residents located at 402 South Franklin Street. The email disapproving the development. Included in the packet is the rezoning requirements, Chapter 470. There are some previous planning actions near the property and on the property. The property has retained a single-family residential zoning classification since 1979. The property was included as part of the original town neighborhood plan adopted in May of 2009. In April of 2010, the original town overlay district zoning designation was added to the subject property. A good neighborhood meeting, informational meeting, was held Wednesday, February 11th, 2015. Mr. Salih, the applicant, presented the application to 10 individuals in attendance. A total of 13 dwelling units, as the applicant has described, are proposed in 3 buildings, 1 story with 2 bedroom and a central parking lot area with access off of Monroe Street and a central trash enclosure unit. The dwelling units would be for lease as an age-restricted 55 and older senior housing area. The individuals attending the meeting asked about parking. That was a concern. About the overflow onto Monroe Street and Elm Street. The effect the buildings would have on property values was a concern. privacy in the backyard areas of existing homes, maintenance of the alley along the west property line, and location of the trash enclosure again. Engineering had included their comments, that is in your packet. And under staff comments, the R3A multiple family residential district is intended to accommodate higher density residential development. It is subject to special conditions. That is in the table that's outlined and also outlined in section 420.010A of the Uniform Development UDC, which includes the building separation, number of units per building, and the building design. The original town overlay district does take precedence in the setback requirements and the number of units and the building design. Multifamily dwelling units require 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. A total of 20 parking spaces required for this project. 22 have been provided or proposed. The property is adjacent to platted right-of-way on all 4 sides. This includes Plum Street, Monroe Street, Elm Street, which is an unimproved 66-foot right-of-way that only contains a 4-foot sidewalk, and to the unimproved alley right-of-way, also on the west side of the property line. There are several street lights near the property that provide illumination for evening and nighttime security. And included are photographs of a similar project or development in Peculiar. This would be the similar type of structures that is proposed. Adequate fire protection would exist for the development. There is a fire hydrant that exists on the east side of Monroe Street. There are 2 access points for the fire department. That was their request. And there are utilities near the property. There's a 6-inch water main and an 8-inch water main. A sanitary line does exist on the west side of Monroe Street, and there are some electrical service in the alleyway. The proposed development will require site plan approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. This will also include the new stormwater control and treatment section of the UDC. There is no specific zoning district for age-restricted housing. The age restriction is accomplished through the use of development agreement and restrictive covenant. This process was utilized when the Raymore Senior Apartment development was proposed on the north side of Price Chopper property that was approved recently. The restrictive covenant would require residents to be at least 55 years of age, and it would be recorded and would be assigned to future landowners should the property be sold. That means that they would have to come before council to ask permission to have it removed. The conceptual site plan submitted with the rezoning application complies with all the setback separation requirements and parking requirements. The overflow parking for visitors and guests of the residents of the units would be allowed on Plum and Monroe Street and Elm, the same right afforded to residents of existing dwelling units on Plum, Monroe, and Elm. Under the current R1 original town zoning designation as it is today, the property owner could construct 6 single-family detached dwelling units on the property. Uses separated by intervening right-of-way, streets or alleys. Screening is not required. This development would not require screening. The landscape code would require tree and shrub plantings to be installed along the parking areas, which is part of the site plan approval. Staff has provided an inventory list of multiple family unit or dwelling units within the city limits. And just to highlight senior living units, Foxwood Springs, which is a planned unit development, PUD, Greenway Villas is another one that's in the Lemoore area, and Walnuts Estates. Staff proposed findings of facts have been included. With this public hearing, if it is approved tonight, the first council meeting would be held April 13th, and the second reading would be held April 27th, 2015. And finally, our staff recommendation, creating an additional housing option for residents to live in Original Town neighborhood helps the city to comply with the goals of the growth management plan. Adding maintenance, provided age restricted rental units as a dwelling option in the neighborhood would help strengthen the area. Residents living in age restricted senior housing units create minimal impact on the neighborhood. Vehicular traffic to and from the units is minimal, as each unit typically will have only one vehicle. With the quiet lifestyle that senior residents tend to live, there will be less noticeable impacts in those impacts created by 6 detached single-family residences that are not age-restricted units. One of the principal strengths identified by residents of the Original Town neighborhood when the neighborhood plan was being developed was the stability of the area. As many residents have resided in the neighborhood for many years, providing additional housing option for senior residents to remain in the neighborhood will help maintain that stability. Now, there's a variety of mixed uses already in the Original Town. We have assembly uses such as the churches, the Lions. We also have the farmers market that's held each Tuesday in the summer months. There's some shopping, and there's also dentists and other medical shops there. There is this sense of community in the Original Town, and outside of Foxwood Springs, there's only really 85 units in the city restricted to senior residents. Staff supports the request to reclassify the zoning of the property and recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission to accept staff proposed findings of fact and forward the case number 15004 Monroe Street rezoning R1 Original Town to R3A Original Town with a recommendation of approval subject to the following condition: a development agreement and restrictive covenants that limits the use of the property to residents at least 55 years of age and shall be recorded prior to the issuance of any building permit. And that concludes this long staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Okay. As I said earlier, this case does require a public hearing, and before I open the public hearing on case 15004, Monroe Street rezoning, Commission would like to request just a few things in the way of meeting protocol. When I open the public hearing, you'll be given an opportunity to come forward to the podium. If you choose to do so, please be sure you speak into the microphone. It should have a green light, be on, so that we can hear you. And we'd like for you to give us your name and address for the record. I'd also, just in the interest of trying to keep the meeting moving, if possible, I'd like for you to limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes per, and if you're in support of a position that's already been stated once, rather than stating that same position again, if you would simply note that you're in agreement with the position stated by that person or just that position in general. And did I leave out anything really crucial? Just general rules of good public behavior. Having said that, let me open the public hearing, and anyone who wishes to speak on case 15004 Monroe Street rezoning, please feel free to come forward. Yeah.
My name is Earl Wilson. I live at 312 South Monroe. I've develop some ground here in the community. In fact, all the subdivision to the east of this, we developed it with the intention of having retirement housing in it, which it has done. We knew that Skyview was already over there. We were forced to connect that street to connect to Skyview. It's become a racetrack. We have complained to the police department, adding 22 more units. I don't see how it's going to slow the traffic. Also, we have a subdivision that's sitting down below there that I developed that is still sitting there, which was originally tried to be duplexes for older people, 55 or older. The city then turned that down. They were high-end duplexes instead of a big conglomeration. I'm not against Mr. Salih for his ideas. It's just that this street, in the old part of town, this city has never spent the money to keep and have storm sewers, sidewalks, wide enough streets for children to play. You know, I find it kind of appalling that I was forced to put all the water retention for everything there for the whole city in the old town. And one of the holes was filled up, the property was given back to the man. I turned around, I made an agreement with Assembly of God Church at that time to handle all the water at that time. Now we're adding more water to it. We still don't have storm sewers on that street. We don't have sidewalks, except the ones that I paid for. You know, I like to see development in our community. The other problems that we have is mainly the streets, mainly the sidewalks, mainly storm sewers. We need to see improvement in that area before we keep adding on to it. You know, I think that is, you know, it's nice that the city decided to put a sidewalk from by the cemetery on the corner and run it to the next street. That's all nice. But the only one using that traffic area there really is Skyview. Skyview is like a racetrack cutting through there every morning, every night. I'm glad I don't have children there. And for us to add more to it seems to me to create a bigger problem. I'm not against the elderly, by no means. I'm 64 years old. But I have a nice house on that street and I try to keep mine up. And I think we need to think about what we've allowed to happen for Skyview. You know, it's a public street, but it's a racetrack. I think we have a stormwater problem, and we're going to add to the problem. And all those old lots, there was 2 of them that make one, basically, in the old part of town. We see a few people that buy a few of those lots up, and they build nice houses. We see that the city tore down all their old buildings there. We've got a nice little farmer's market, but that has nothing to do with retirement housing. Neither does a dentist office or a doctor's office, because if I remember correctly, back when one of the planning and zoning guys said, well, you know, we need to take and have it a mixed use. So doctor's office, attorney's offices are all good. I have nothing against them, but they're not rushing 22 new places at once with no improvement to the exterior. Just makes sense to me that some reevaluation might be taken. And I think most of the people that are here that live on that street will have about the same opinion that I have at this time. I'm not against anybody developing this city. I think it's good for the city. But I don't think this is a fit. And especially if we don't have the proper storm sewers and stuff, and we're going to speed more water to it now. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yep. Please come forward.
My name is Kelly Parker. I live at 313 South Monroe Street. I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, I know that some of the surrounding area, you know, there's some older residents in that area, but if you look along Monroe Street. The majority of the people that live on Monroe Street are younger families with children, and you know, I really don't think a retirement type community fits with that. I think you're looking at, you know, kids make noise. You're looking at, you know, conflict of interest, clashing, things like that. So I just wanted to kind of say that, and I'll yield the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
I'm Jennifer Parker, his wife, same address. My main concern is that, you know, we have the people here that are in charge, and but after these homes are built, they can easily sell the property and turn it into different kind of homes for multifamily. And that was one of our big concerns with, you know, having a family and children going up and down these streets. And I would have to agree with my husband and Earl as well about the location and things that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Christensen. I live at 300 East Elm Street. I live exactly on the corner of Monroe and Elm. Several things is I oppose this plan, and I oppose the rezoning. When I bought my house maybe 6 years ago, I believed that it was in a single-family area because I have a child. And I chose my house because it was the furthest one away from the street over that has all the multi-family units. If it was next to the retirement center, I would not have purchased my house. We also, I agree with Earl, is we have a big problem with traffic. A lot of people speed down the street. I would much rather see single-family homes than a multi-unit. I believe that it's going to increase traffic flow a lot, and I already am nervous when my child plays out because of all the traffic flow, and I just don't think that's going to make it any better. Sidewalks are a problem, and in the first meeting I had asked, and they said they are not going to provide a sidewalk around the area. We just have limited sidewalks. Again, there's a lot of children on the street, so I think that might be a problem as well. And along with the traffic, off-street parking, that would include my lot. They would be parking all around the corner. And with the traffic flow that comes from Skyview and they go around the corner really fast. I know because that's where my house is. I just think that that's going to create a lot of problems. I would much rather see homes there because I think that a homeowner would take more pride than rentals in keeping up. And also, for my view, I would much rather, my kitchen window would be facing the parking lot. So I would be looking into the parking lot at the front of the units. And I mean, for privacy and for the view, I would much rather be looking at homes. And another point is the noise. On that side of the house is where my son's bedroom is, and I feel like with the parking lot, with the doors shutting and all the traffic, it's going to make it really noisy. So I think that's all that I had to say. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thomas and Mary Meyer. I live at 501 South Aspen. That's the triangular property just south of the...
Oh.
There's a lot of issues here that they haven't considered, and that needs more thinking. The alleyway between there has to be taken care of by somebody, and I know the city's not going to do it. I mow all the city's property now. That's where that sidewalk goes. I've mowed it for 22 years. And I'd much rather look at the side of one house than the back of 4 Park. We have problems with people driving through there. They think they want to go straight on through. And the city promised us lights along that sidewalk 5 years ago. It's not there yet. They promised a sidewalk down Aspen. It's not there. I just don't want to have that next to my house. It's a nice looking apartment building, but it doesn't belong in Old Town. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gratzky, 413 South Franklin Street. I'm going to talk a little bit here, but I'm referring to the original town neighborhood plan with the majority of what I'll be saying. I'm an engineer, so I like to deal with facts. Jerry understands. So several years ago, after I first moved to Raymore, I attended an event at a local school where the city was asking original town Raymore residents to give input to what they wanted to see in their community. The city planning staff used the input from that meeting to create this original town neighborhood plan. One of the 5 areas addressed was zoning. The recommendations in the plan were formulated from input received by the original town community and strive to closely reflect the community's collective vision for the neighborhood's future. Excuse me. When residents were asked about land use, the majority showed a preference for a traditional single-family neighborhood. Residents expressed a strong desire for a quiet neighborhood and had concerns about traffic. Also, the original town plat divides each block into 6,000 square foot lots, so the idea that this could also be 6 homes in this small area also seems a little far-fetched. Residents commented that they did not want to see vacant lots developed with many small homes or multifamily zoning close together. Many attendees objected to the ideas of reduced yard standards as well. If the proposed rezoning is allowed, the city will be blatantly ignoring the wishes of the original town residents, wishes that the residents openly expressed in meetings that were organized by the city itself and then placed into this plan that's available on raymore.com. Excuse me. Also, I just want to comment, me personally, I don't think 55 is old. I wouldn't call that necessarily senior living. I think people at 55 are still very vibrant and have a lot of life left in them. So it's not necessarily going to be the quiet community that it's proposed to be. And also, as mentioned before, what happens if the units don't sell, it goes into bankruptcy, what will happen with the covenant? Would it become HUD housing? And also, we do have 317 total senior living spaces in the city. It was made to sound like fewer earlier, but including Foxwood Springs, I think that's quite a few. And I agree with all of the comments from the previous commenters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on the public hearing on case 15004? Lynn? Take your time.
Well, obviously, I'm a senior citizen. I live at 301 Elm. I'm across the corner from this proposed thing. Oh, sorry. Marva Irvin.
Thank you.
I forgot that, sorry. I just don't think it's going to fit into the neighborhood the way it should. And I agree with everything everybody said. Just thought I'd make my point that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before I close the public hearing, would anyone else like to speak? Mr. Sally?
I think I've already stated my address, my name, so I won't repeat that.
That's fine.
But I would like to add a comment to of some statistics that we had asked Kurt Wallace, who's designed these type of projects before, not only in Kansas City area, but also areas throughout the state and even in other areas in the central United States, and that is most of the average statistics on a project like this is about 80% of the residents are typically, and again, these are not my numbers, these are coming from Kurt Wallace, but about 80% of the residents are usually widowed men or women. 10% are, 80% are widowed women, 10% are couples, and 10% are single men. And the parking requirements in most of the areas that he has designed is usually, I believe, about 1.2 parking spaces per unit. And I believe that we're about 2 parking spaces per unit. So I do not believe that the drivers that will be living in an area like this will be reckless drivers. I think most will be rather cautious, like we all become as we become a little older, I believe. And most of the tenants are, you live a quiet lifestyle. They're not really adding to maybe adding problems to a neighborhood like this. And we wouldn't be proposing this, you know, if we felt like it was. We're not asking for these to be multiple level units. We're asking them to be all single level, and we truly believe that it is an addition or an improvement to the neighborhood and not a detriment. So that's probably all I got to say. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate your comments. Thank you. All right, unless there's anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing, about the one time I get to whack the gavel, so I will close the public hearing on case 15004. Open the floor for questions, discussion by the commission. And Mr. Zur, if I may start with a question, if you would. We've heard concerns about the age restriction and potential, I'll just say potential for abuse should the property later be sold, and I think you've got background on this if I remember right. If you would you address that concern for the commission, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Chairman. Jonathan Zur with the Kapke and Willard Law Firm, representing the city as counsel for this evening. With regard to your question, Chairman, the age restrictions for 55 and up would be part of a development agreement and restrictive covenants that would be imposed upon the property. The restrictive covenants are recorded in the Recorder of Deeds office and would require that any change would occur, I presume would be required to go through the city council for prior approval. So they would actually, it's kind of like the equivalent of a vacation of an easement or a street. It would have to have public input and city council review for that as part of the restrictive covenants. Outside of that, those restrictive covenants would pop up on any title insurance report that was performed on by a title insurance company, which would be selling those properties or any of the property that's at issue here, and would have to be addressed if they were going to make those changes at that time. Otherwise, it's on there for as long as we have on any other homes association declarations of covenants, conditions, and restrictions.
All right, and legally enforceable.
and legally enforceable.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you,
Very
Mr.
similar to
Zerr.
the senior housing we had not too long ago. I think we had a number of
Right.
questions that came up about it at that point, which, as long as it's made a part of the public record,
Right.
is going to trip anything for title.
I remember we did, but I'm not sure. I think we've got some commissioners new since that time, so thank you. Appreciate that discussion. That's all I had. Commissioner Crane?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Mr. Krass to kind of address the stormwater problems that...
Well, you might ask Mr. Eanes. since
Oh, well,
he's-
Mr. Ames.
Not that I'm going to forbid Mr. Krass from speaking, but between the two of them, they can decide who'd like to speak to us. Stormwater problems. Mr. Eanes?
The storm sewer will be addressed through two options. One would be the stormwater treatment, which is the BMPs, like rain gardens and things like that, and also through detention.
So are they having problems now over there?
I am not aware of anything. Maybe Mr. Krass can.
Yeah,
speak to
Mr.
that right
Krass,
now.
if you'd like, I'm not going to take a chance that we can hear you yelling from back there, so please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Michael Krass, Public Works Director. There's not any current problems that I'm aware of. Most of the drainage that occurs in the original town area is sheet flow and through ditches. And a comment was made about improving the area. Actually, as part of the outgrowth of the original town plan, the character of those streets was desired to be maintained as it is, with ditches and just ribbon pavement. So there are no improvements for stormwater planned in that area at all.
And there's no sewers there either?
There is just the ditches and underroad culverts.
Oh, it's like my house.
Yes. Okay. One of the challenges is that this area was developed before our stormwater detention requirements, and so there's a lot of sheet flow. In general, it flows northeasterly, and the city did do a number of stormwater improvements in the vicinity of the Freedom Stop to address some flooding that was occurring along the backs of the apartments there to the west of the Freedom Stop. On this particular site, on-site detention will be required in one form or another. That's really up to the developer how they meet those requirements, whether it's through a detention pond or underground storage or any other means that they can use. But the runoff from this site will be controlled, so it will not contribute any more to than what the current runoff is from the site.
Will it improve it?
With the addition of the stormwater best management practices, what will occur is the smaller storms will be released at pre-development rates. So it's in general it won't harm anything. I don't know that it's going to improve anything.
That's all I have.
Well, while we've got Mr. Krass at the microphone, do any of the other commissioners have questions for engineering department? Mr. Sarsfield?
I have one.
Commissioner Sarsfield?
I didn't notice the plans that well because they aren't detailed that much. The parking lot itself, are there storm drains in the parking lot, or is the water going to drain out of the parking lot into the street and will go any which way that the wind blows, so to speak?
At this level, what our engineering analysis pertains with is there adequate public facilities to support the development? Those type of issues are addressed at site plan when we get more detailed information regarding the infrastructure on the site. But as I said, they will be required to detain the runoff on site, so they will not be able to just simply discharge to the roadside ditches.
Right. So just to make that clear, and I agree with everything you said, Mr. Krass, tonight's application is a rezoning request from the current R1 zoning to R3A multifamily apartment, and site plan would be a later application if the rezoning would go through. So the focus this evening is actually on zoning. Mr. Zerr, I may misspeak, but appropriate use of the land?
Appropriate use of the land, adequate public facilities,
Right.
public health, safety, welfare, those are your focuses this evening. If you're looking for particular, look to your findings of fact as
Right.
to whether or not those are being met.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to
Yes,
address
of
a couple
course,
of the
Mr.
comments that
Kraus,
were made.
please.
There was a question raised about the sidewalk along Aspen Street.
Right.
That sidewalk was actually planned last year, and when we got into the design, Aspen Street, part of it is an old railroad right-of-way.
Oh, my.
And we got into trying to define where the right-of-way is, and it got to be quite a challenge. So we have been working with the cemetery board to find a way to find a mutually agreeable location for the sidewalk along the east side of Aspen Street that allows the cemetery to make some improvements there and not adversely impact any of the plots that they have planned. Currently, we have engaged a surveyor to do some, gather some survey information for us, and that project will then be under design, and our hopes is to construct it later this year. There's also kind of a comment made about the lack of sidewalks in the area. One of the challenges with this site is Monroe Street is actually the eastern boundary of the original town area. And out of that original town plan, there were very specific streets where sidewalk was identified. And we have constructed that sidewalk. The last segment of that sidewalk that was identified in the original town plan is along Olive Street, and that is programmed along the south side of the farmers market, and that is programmed to be constructed this year. So that will complete the sidewalk network for the original town area. There was also a mention of some decorative lighting along the sidewalk there of the Elm Street right-of-way. That was kind of, I apologize, lost in the cracks for a better word, and we will be including that lighting in this year's capital improvement program.
Yeah. That answers a lot of questions. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Before we let Mr. Kraus sit down? Okay, thank you. You know we have a bad habit of bringing people back up, as do I. All right. Other questions from the commission or discussion on this case?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Meiske.
I have one, I need to clarify a point, Mr. Zerr. When they make this thing a 55 and over and they put the covenants in and they throw it into the county court and all that stuff and it's a done deal, who that's just for who pays the rent, so you could have other people living there?
Excellent question, Commissioner. It will have to be carefully crafted and reviewed by legal counsel at the end of the day. But those language, generally, what you will see is the actual tenant that signs on the lease will have to affirm that they are 55 and older. That's correct.
Okay. Because I know of several that the primary tenant is over 55, but they have the kids living there.
Right.
So, okay.
I think,
I just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Zerr, would it be fair to say that over the years we've tried to pay more attention to age restrictions because of some past abuse, but there's probably nothing foolproof?
That is a fair assessment.
Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah, Commissioner Crane.
I have one more question for Mr. Zerr. I heard something when they were discussing the covenant, and the fact that they could come back before the council again in the future and get that erased. Is that correct? So if they were to promise that nobody under 55 would be living there now and get these people to go along with it, and then 2 years from now, if they can't rent the places to people 55, they could go back to the city council, and depending on how the city council feels at that time, could change that?
I believe that this would be subject to a development agreement between the developer and the city at the end of the day, and that there would be restrictive covenants that would be propounded or drafted based upon those. If the applicant came back, there would be provisions within them for what it would take to remove or alter or otherwise amend those restrictions. In terms of what you want to keep in mind is it's hard to keep a restriction that's going to last for forever if it's going to frustrate the efforts of future development or future growth. So you've got to have some triggering event, some idea in there of what could be done. And language like coming before the council in order to get approval for any proposed change, requiring a public hearing for that can all be drafted to be included within it, but you don't want to necessarily have a no-out option. A no-out option would lead to frustration of any future development that we might see there. I mean, in essence, you could end up with a Raymore grows in leaps and bounds and we need to build a hospital in that location, or something else that is large and major 3 generations from now, and if it's stuck without being able to be changed for a senior housing 55 and older, you get the frustration of the potential development of Raymore. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I'm just suggesting to you that there are options that would allow for at least something to come before council to get final approval if there was ever a change.
Well, I'm very in tune to neighborhoods and people coming in and buying property and expecting certain things over their lifetime. So, I mean, I know that there's unusual circumstances, but I also know that sometimes things happen that you don't want to happen.
Yeah. I think Raymore is a long way from hitting maturity and decline and redevelopment, but certainly most of us are familiar with other parts of the metro area and so forth where that happens at some point in time. I would agree with Mr. Zur that, you know, we're trying to plan for what we see as the future, but beyond that, you know, there are always unforeseen circumstances. I think your point's well taken, Commissioner Crane. Other comments from the Commission?
Excuse me.
Anyone care to make a motion on case 15004? I would note, Mr. Zur, I'm sort of surprised you didn't jump in ahead of me on this, but I would note that I think it's safe to say that it's Planning and Zoning Commission's responsibility not only to give the case a fair hearing, conduct a public hearing, but also make a recommendation to City Council. In order for us to make a recommendation, we require a minimum of 5 votes, either to recommend approval or to recommend denial. I think I note with Commissioner Grodzki recused, we have 6 of us, so for the case to go forward to City Council with either a recommendation for or against is going to require 5 of us in agreement. Otherwise, Mr. Zur, check me on this subtlety, but otherwise, if we don't have a majority of 5 either way, then it goes to council with no recommendation. Is that correct?
I did have an opportunity to advise the applicant prior to the meeting this evening with regard to that issue. But yes, you are correct. You will need 5 votes, either in favor or against. I'm sorry, in favor of sending it to the council with a recommendation of approval, or in favor of sending it to the council with a recommendation of denial.
Right. So whichever way one of the commissioners might care to phrase an initial motion, we'll see how that vote goes and proceed accordingly. It's a little early for my bedtime. I can wait you out. Commissioner Sarsfield.
I just have one statement or question.
Of course.
For me to make an accurate, honest vote pro or con to the project, for myself, I believe there's not enough, there are still a lot of unanswered questions for me to change this from a zoning to a different type of zoning. To me, I look at the whole picture, not just, well, let's get it zoned first, and then we'll look at the building, or we'll look at this. I like looking at it all up front. The streets, the sidewalk, the lights, this, before we get it changed. So that is my only problem, because if there are enough changes are made to satisfy everyone, the speeding, the water runoff, stop signs, speed bumps, whatever, an extended street, a wider street, whatever, that would help me in making my decision as far as, do we change it to a different zone? If person A says we need this done, and person B says I think this needs to be done, and we take everybody's within reason, without paving the streets in gold, to make it feasible for everyone to say, all right, everyone's happy on both sides of the street, so to speak. Then we can go ahead with the rezoning, because this might happen 5 blocks away somewhere else in 5 years from now, or 10 blocks away. So if we set the precedent now for more information, to see this is what it's going to do, this is the lighting, this is the streets, this is the sidewalk, etc., not just 13 units and 22 parking places.
Yep.
That's
Point
it.
noted. Mr. Zer, would you like to respond to Mr.
I didn't take that
Sarsfield's
as a
comment?
question, but I'm happy to.
Well, I think, in my opinion, Mr. Sarsfield makes a good point. What we have tonight is a rezoning request with staff recommendation, public testimony from many of the neighbors, Mr. Sally and his architect's presentation. I think really our decision tonight probably hinges primarily on those factors. Did I leave out anything that was really critical?
Your knowledge of the area in general,
Right.
and the Old Town overlay provisions that you guys are aware of.
Right.
This evening, sometimes you do see these zonings come along with a proposed site plan or a proposed development plan to come along with that as well. You don't have that in this particular sense. You do have what has been provided in the packet, and your decision this evening on whether or not the zoning change is appropriate in this area is based
Right.
upon the information you've got in the packet and the UDC.
And to simply touch on Commissioner Sarsfield's question, it would be nice if we could see the finished product before we made a decision. That's clearly not feasible. One avenue that we do have available, and I'm absolutely not recommending this evening, but just as a point for future reference, I would note that the city staff's recommendation on the case did include one condition. Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, Mr. Zer, has the ability to add additional conditions to a motion should that be appropriate. But in this case tonight, I don't really know what we could add as a condition that would be any more appropriate than the one that's proposed. Yeah, feel free.
Yes.
That's fine.
This is a rezoning application.
Right. Good point. Okay. Other questions, comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Pfizer.
It's for you. And in the event that we do approve the rezoning, and for some reason this project doesn't go through, personally I think it's kind of great to have different uses in the neighborhood, but that's just me. But if, say, the specific project wasn't approved for some reason, then can the area be zoned back to residential? Can people still build single-family homes in this spot, or would it then have to be multifamily?
Under the upgraded zoning, you'd be able to build anything that's allowed in that zoning and less. So if they wanted to, they could maintain an R3 zoning on it, but still build single-family units. If they decided they wanted to, they could come back in the future with another rezoning application, either to increase density or decrease density if they so desired. Although I'm not sure I understand why they would want to come back in and rezone it to decrease it if they've already got the provision in there for doing what they want to do.
Well, I'm
Right.
just saying, if, say that
Yeah.
applicant
To
decided
your
to find a
question,
better spot.
to your
or-
question, if we and city council approved rezoning from R1 to R3, then yes, a future request could be to rezone from R3 to R1.
Mhm.
I would say most anything can be changed, it's just not changed capriciously. It's things like zoning are regarded as fairly firm and not changed without good reason. Hmm? Yeah. Mr. Warner,
Chairman,
sorry.
I'm looking at the table that was on 410 or 420-010 for single-family detached conventional, and it looks like it's permitted only in the R1. On that table, it's on page 11, and there's a strikeout on the R3A. Am I correct that that's not allowed then, or it shows a table that would not be allowed?
Right. I'd go scrambling for another paragraph that actually states that lesser zoning is allowed, because I'm sure that I've seen that. However, that isn't a certainty. Fair question. Probably helps if I get in residential.
Our chart is page 11 on the 40. Sorry to bring this up, guys.
Clarification?
So yes, that is correct, and in fact, it's referenced in the staff comments that those that are identified with a dash are prohibited, so it would require for it to be rezoned back down to the R1 in order for single-family dwelling detached to be utilized.
Okay, if it were zoned R2, it would allow R1, but
Yep.
zoned R3 does not allow duplex or single family.
That's correct. I'd like to thank
Thank you.
Mr. Krass for pointing
Yeah.
that out to me. I was looking for the original
Right. I see it too,
section
yeah.
in the code section, which would have given me the key to it, but the key has been provided in the staff comments. I just happened to miss that.
All right. So, for clarification, that was a good question. You didn't realize how much
Didn't mean to start trouble.
that was going to go deep. Thank you, Mr. Warner. All right. I think it's a little early to take a recess. Would any of the commissioners care to phrase a motion, either to recommend approval or recommend denial of the case, and we'll see how the vote goes. And again, point of reference, we are recommending to City Council, they have final approval on rezoning.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Meiske.
Okay. I will give this a shot.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I recommend case 15004, Monroe Street, rezoning R1 to R3A, to be forwarded to the City Council for denial.
Okay, and I suppose, Mr. Zur, if we are moving to deny, the condition is irrelevant, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So...
Is that a motion to move
so I have-
to recommend to the City Council?
Right.
I
So I
forgot
have
a motion.
I'll try to rephrase. So I have a motion by Commissioner Meiske to recommend denial of case 15004, Monroe Street rezoning, and forward to City Council. Close enough? Yeah. Or I could say to forward case 15004 to City Council with the recommendation of denial. I think
Okay.
that actually phrases better. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Meiske. Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Was that
Commissioner Craig?
Commissioner Crane? Sarsfield?
I heard you, so right next to me.
Okay, I'm going to write it down as Commissioner Sarsfield since you're both, and I couldn't pick out the voice. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to forward case 15004, Monroe Street rezoning, to City Council with a recommendation of denial. Motion by Commissioner Meiske, second by Commissioner Sarsfield. Is there any further discussion on the motion before we take a vote? Okay. Motion is to deny. All those in favor of the motion, raise a hand, please. And we have,
I was thinking still.
okay, so we have 5 in favor of the motion. Opposed? Mayor Kirchhoff opposed. And that leaves no one abstaining. And Mayor Kirchhoff, as we do, since you were in the position opposing the motion, if you'd like to state your rationale for the record, feel free. Or not. Okay. So actually, the motion carries, and we'll go on to City Council with the recommendation of denial of case 15004. Yep. Thank you. And that concludes new business and takes us to City Council report. Mr. Zur.
Thank you, Chairman. I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Willard this morning with regard to the City Council report. He gave me the matters of issue and concern before the City Council on its March 9th, 2015 meeting. There were 2 items of issue that he wanted me to bring up with you, 3 at the conclusion of our conversation. So I'll give you all 3 and let you decide if the last one is worthy of a comment or a discussion.
Oh, Commissioner Grodzki, you may come back up if you'd like. Sorry.
Glad to have you joining us again. 3 items of issue and concern. These were all on new business for first readings at the City Council level. The first was a preliminary plat extension for the North Cass Plaza. Good Otis LLC requested a 1-year extension to the expiration date of their preliminary plat for the North Cass Plaza. This was approved by a vote of 8-0. It will go to a second reading the next go-around. The next item that was identified by Mr. Willerth was a farmers market shelter project. It's my understanding that it was approved by a vote of 8-0 as part of the capital improvement plan. This will allow for the construction of the farmers market shelter and the contract of the award to Athco LLC. The last item that came up, and I bring this up only because roundabouts have been of a concern or at least discussed at this commission for access and driving purposes. A design concept for Dean Avenue, Lucy Webb Road roundabout feature has been approved. It was approved by a vote of 7-1. It will be in the design stage for this, and then it will include the Phase 1 as well. With that in mind, I'm sorry, that's not correct. It will not include the Phase 1, it will just be the initial design concepts that were approved for the city. I'd invite the mayor or Mr. Warner if there's any additional input for those. No? That is all I have with regard to city council.
Okay, Mr. Warner, if you would, give us the staff report and planning pipeline, please.
Sorry about that. I
No,
don't know
that's all
if I
right. It
have
takes
that.
me a minute to get organized, too.
Do you have that, Nancy?
Here you go.
Thank you, sir. You're wanting some additional building activity and planning pipeline. For the Planning Commission, the upcoming meetings for March and April. The City Council has a meeting on March 23rd, first reading of the board contract for mowing. Is this what you want? Services for code enforcement. There is an April 7th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It's canceled due to the use of the council chambers for Election Day.
Right.
April 13th. The City Council meeting for the second reading of the mowing services, first reading to reclassify the zoning, which is the recommendation of denial.
Right.
No items are currently scheduled for the April 21st, 2015 Planning and Zoning
As
Commission.
far as you know, is that still current, that we have no,
That's what I'm
we
reading.
have no
off of.
items for April 21st?
I don't know.
Okay. I think what I would propose, clearly April 7th, we will not meet. I think we probably should keep April 21st open. I think, if I'm correct, that we're not necessarily past the filing deadline for that meeting, do you think, Mr. Warner?
That's correct. There's nothing currently scheduled, but we
Right.
can keep that open.
So we'll get word out at a later time if the meeting is, if the April 21st meeting is canceled. Otherwise, I think let's leave it open on the schedule.
That
Okay.
can be done.
Thank you, and go ahead, please.
That's the end of the Planning and Zoning Commission pipeline.
Okay. The national conference is coming up, that's mid-April. Commissioner Meiske, right? National conference? Right. Okay, and I don't have the dates down either. I was kind of trying to remember if it happened to overlap the April 21st meeting, but that's not on the top of my head right at the moment.
And it's not on my calendar, so.
No darn.
Yes, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay. I was actually kind of thinking that you might be returning about the same time as that possible April 21st meeting, but I'm not remembering real well. We won't pull it up on the web tonight. Okay, so that concluded staff and planning pipeline. Thank you, Mr. Warner. I would open the floor for public comment, but seeing that the public has left, let's move on to commission member comment. Commissioner Crane, would you like to start?
I was hoping the developers would stay so they could hear this. I was really excited when this came because I saw a chance for us to do some fill-in on some of the vacant property, especially a property that since the town has been platted has never been developed or anything. So my wife and I drove up there. And one of my concerns was I couldn't see from the Google overhead view. I thought, well, boy, what if there's some old growth trees up there and stuff, and the way they got it laid out, will they take out those trees? Is that another thing? And as I stood out there in the middle of it, I sit there and I go, ditches. And I know they've got water problems over there because I live over near that. And we go through some of the same problems in our neighborhood. We've been there 30, 40 years. We still don't have sidewalks. We got ditches and stuff, and there's problems with that. And to take a higher density development and to stick it right in the middle of things that are single-family housing all around it. I noticed the kids out in the yard. It was a nice day, especially seniors going in there. I had some real worries about it. And I tried to balance the needs of the neighborhood with the needs of the property owner and all. And I just thought that there were just too many things against it. Maybe if there was sewers in there, and maybe if there was sidewalks that the seniors could walk on and some things like that. You know, I worried about those safety issues and stuff too. So I just had too many questions for it to make the change in the zoning.
Appreciate that. Anything else? And yeah, Commissioner Grodzki.
Yeah, no comment.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
I think I said it all before.
Well, that's fine. I appreciated the comments earlier, so thank you. Commissioner
My
Mice.
concern is because I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Working for the state, not this state, for 30 years. I had too many surprises over my lifetime from working with them. It's like we'll cross those bridges when we come to them, you know. And whenever we got to the bridge, the creek that was 5 feet wide is now a raging river, and there's no money to build a bridge, even if it was 5 foot wide. And they always came up with, well, we don't have too many choices now. We got to do something, so let's do something we don't want. So the plan of this was like, my concern was, it was a good idea. I don't have white hair because I diet. And what if it was 5 blocks away or the other side of Raymore? We have another housing thing. We have another senior citizen thing. If we raise the standards to it and say, if someone is going to come in and do this, these are the minimums before you even make your drawings out, before you submit anything. Sidewalks, streets, sewer, lighting, the whole 9 yards. So when we have the meetings, the people can't say, well, we have a drainage problem, or we have this problem, or we have this problem down the line. The contractor either does them, or we don't get it, or he doesn't get it built. And I think that'll save a lot of steps in between, and you have the more serious contractor going to do a better job for it because he really wants to, not just sell property or move something, or I had a better idea this week.
Thank you. Commissioner Meiske.
Well, I've got a couple of comments. I think Commissioner Grodzki did a good job when she identified the old town and what the old town was supposed to be and how it was set up.
Now, you have to remember, just point of clarification, that wasn't Commissioner Grodzki speaking, that was resident Grodzki. But nevertheless, she was recused from taking action on the case. Just a point. Go ahead, Commissioner Meiske.
Well, I think she did a good job at that, and I agree that I think the city needs to move forward in certain areas, but we need to still maintain the historical value of some areas. So that was one comment. Second one is about the roundabouts. I was totally against that. Didn't like them, but I drive the one at Lucy Webb and Dean twice a day, and that traffic flows a whole lot better now than when it did when there were stoplights on Dean, or stop signs on Dean, and you had to sit there and try to sneak out. So I'm okay with roundabouts now.
I still don't like it.
But yeah, that's a good point. sometimes what doesn't seem like it's that appealing actually works out, and as Commissioner Sarsfield pointed out, sometimes things that look like they might be okay turn out not to be so good after all. We learn, right? Let's see, Mayor Kirkhoff.
Thank you. I thought the citizens in the audience tonight presented themselves well. And that's about it. That's it.
Oh, that's it. Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Pfizer.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Crane in that when I first read this, I thought, wow, this is a slam dunk. Who wouldn't want this in their neighborhood? Because it seems like it fills the area where there's nothing and seems like pretty safe development. But then as people talked, I kind of thought some people were being a little dramatic with the traffic problems. But I don't live there, so well, I don't know. But I kind of thought that, yeah, rezoning it had, as Commissioner or Citizen Grodzki said, it had its original purpose, and I kind of felt like we should stick with that, even though personally I thought it was a good idea, and I do think it's nice for neighborhoods to have different age groups and ethnicities and just businesses, all sorts of different things that make up a neighborhood. But in this case, I kind of thought we should stick with the original plan.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you said that, because that's pretty much my thoughts actually as well. So I always find it very difficult when we have a very well thought out, well phrased staff recommendation going one way, and obviously, let's say, public sentiment, neighbors certainly going the opposite way, and I think that makes it even more challenging for the Planning and Zoning Commission to sort of separate out the emotional factors from the rational factors and come to a reasonable conclusion. And I really have a strong aversion to dumping cases onto City Council, even though they do have the final say on this case. So I like to try to do as much work up front as we can in the Planning and Zoning Commission and give City Council a reasonable recommendation. In this case, as I said, I pretty much agreed with Commissioner Pfizer. The development itself didn't look like it was particularly intensive. It looked like it was possibly reasonably appropriate for the area. It's actually on the corner of the original town, not right in the center of it. And so it wasn't something that just flat seemed obviously wrong, but the question that I found that I didn't really have a good answer to was, we planned original town based on preserving the character of the original Raymore neighborhood, and the growth management plan, which certainly can be changed under the right circumstances, but the growth management plan planned that area for R1, and in the end I felt like even though this appeared to be a small exception, I'm not sure what kind of other precedents it might have set, and I felt like, as one of the neighbors said, you know, we bought knowing that this was R1 and expecting it to continue R1, and I felt like that was the overwhelming factor in voting to deny. And I would be very remiss if I didn't thank city staff for your help, and I think we put all of you to good use this evening. So as always, we do appreciate what you do to support us, and we could not do the job of the commission without your help. Having said that, unless any commissioners or mayor have anything else to add, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, come on, you're not going to be as shy as you were on the case.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, so let's see, I'll call it a Motion by Commissioner Crane, second by Commissioner Meiske to adjourn. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. And I have 7, so it is unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you.